Basketball icon John Thompson Jr. passed away. There'll be plenty of time to mourn his loss, but today it's cause for celebration. What a legend. I'm Donnie Seymour, and this is your Pub Sports Radio hot topic of the day. Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, Allen Iverson, Don Reed, Othello Harrington. The names just roll right off your tongue. Why? Because that's the Georgetown Hoyas, known as Hoya Paranoia from the 1980s and 1990s under John Thompson, that took the NCAA basketball world by storm, and certainly a cultural iconic brand now even carrying through today into the 2020s. When you take a look at back in the Big East, and a lot of the stuff that we go over and take a look at goes back to our childhood. And most people maybe watching this video never even remember Hoya Paranoia or just, Allen Iverson. You saw some of the clips, but you remember being a 76ers great and certainly one of the better basketball players of all time. But some of the interesting stuff that took place in the 1980s when I was growing up really captivated society. Similar to what the Miami Hurricanes did in the 80s and 90s, the Georgetown Hoyas took the world by storm, specifically the suburbs. When you take a look when the Big East was just coming into play, look at the legends of Coach Jim Boeheim, Rollie Massimino, John Thompson, Lou Carnesecca. The Big East was center stage and set the framework for how we view cable television today with these sports brands such as college basketball and getting all the play they do. They were larger than life coaches back in the day. Won a national championship, made it to another one. Also, I'm from the Philadelphia area. I can remember back when the shot clock, before the shot clock era took place, that monster upset between Villanova and the Georgetown Hoyas. And me, a kid from the suburbs, back in the early 80s, asking my mother for a Georgetown Hoyas basketball shirt that I got, and I thought I was the coolest kid around. You want to talk about the satin jackets with Georgetown laced across it from the mid-80s into the early 90s. And also, when I was in high school, there were two jerseys that you were going to get if you were a college basketball fan. One was the North Carolina jersey, and one was the Georgetown jersey. Single-handedly, one of the coolest, iconic brands in all of basketball. The Nike Georgetown uniform with the rims around the uniform sides. You had the Jordans as shoes. They were an unbelievable look, and certainly the catalyst for that in the 90s was Allen Iverson. When you take a look at what John Thompson Jr. did all throughout, he was iconic, larger-than-life figure on the sideline, both in stature, wearing the towel over his shoulder, but also from the impact that he had, pulling his teams off the court. If the crowds that he encountered in the Big East were doing disrespectful things, pulling his team off. An absolute icon in every way, shape, and form, and using his platform for good, bringing many minority kids to Georgetown to get a wonderful education and graduate. If you remember, Allen Iverson was the first basketball player to leave early from Georgetown, not getting his, I'm not too sure if actually Allen Iverson graduated from Georgetown or not, but he did leave early, where everybody usually stayed for at least 4 years, got their education, and moved on. What an amazing journey throughout the 80s and 90s. Of course, you saw his son grow up in the coaching ranks as well, and also taking over for Georgetown, but just an overall impact of, just me, a white kid from the suburbs, and what it actually meant to watch Georgetown basketball compete and take place. It was showtime back in the day. The Big East, again, larger than life from a brand standpoint, and John Thompson Jr. was certainly a part of that. We still see the Georgetown hats, the Georgetown jackets, all the throwbacks, and when you go back to those Big East dates in the 1980s, John Thompson Jr. was centerfold in having an idea of the way college basketball should proceed and be today, because it's larger than life brand, and I keep saying it, it's just an impact that he had on overall society, from the kids that went through to the through the TV brand, and still to this day, when you see him on the sidelines, and also when you see him used to do games as a broadcasting provider as well, in the booth, play-by-play, being a color man, one of the best overall to do it. And as we said, there's a lot of time to celebrate John Thompson. There's a lot of time to mourn John Thompson. And when we look at it, you say, you know what? There'll never be another John Thompson Jr. again. But to be honest, we really need another John Thompson Jr. in our life. College basketball will never be the same, but college basketball is a better place because John Thompson Jr. was a part of it. I'm Donnie Seymour for Pub Sports Radio. This was your hot topic of the day.